It's been peony season and I'm so excited. So today I wanted to paint these beautiful, beautiful flowers. And so in this video, I'm just going to walk you through the basics of the process and also talk a little bit about the importance of painting from life, which is an exercise that I try to do regularly in my painting practice. And if you're new here, my name's Christina Kent, and I'm a fine artist based out of San Francisco. And in addition to making these videos here on YouTube, I also have a Patreon where I share bonus content and you can see my videos early and ad-free. You can also see the full-length painting videos for paintings like this. So if you want to see more, be sure to check it out. So for this painting today, I start out with my usual method where I lightly sort of draw in the major shapes of the subject. So in this case, there were 3 flowers. 2 of them had already started to bloom, and one of them was still sort of closed up in the background. So I just mark out generally where each flower is in the composition, and then try to also mark a little bit where the light and shadow shapes are. This involves squinting a lot. So when you look at flowers, they are often very complicated. There's lots of petals, there's light that shines through some areas and not others. And so it can be very, very easy to get caught up in all of the details. But my goal here with this sketch is to try to simplify things, to try to see the overall shapes and get an understanding of what are the strong moments of light and shadow in the composition. And that's what I'm going to try to convey. So as I'm looking at the flowers, I'm squinting a lot and I'm really trying to get at those overall relationships between light and shadow. As I put in the first colors, I usually go in with the darker shadow shapes, and the peonies, they were mostly kind of a white or cream color with some beautiful stripes of fuchsia and pink. But the interesting part was that the shadow part actually sort of looked a little greenish, a little yellowish to my eyes. So when I'm putting in the shadows for these flowers, that's what I'm putting in, that sort of green tone. And you can see I'm keeping it pretty light, fairly transparent. You can sort of see the texture of the substrate behind it. So I just put in a light amount of that shadow tone. And then I go in with a bit thicker, more opaque, lighter color that's getting closer to the bright white that I saw on the petals. Now I like to layer my highlights, so I don't put in the brightest white right away, but instead I put in more of a sort of a mid-tone lighter color that I'm seeing on the petals. I like to keep the shapes really simple so you can see, I'm using a large brush. I have these relatively simple angular shapes and I'm not getting too detailed. I want to see the overall composition rather than all of the fine details of the petals, because what I'm doing is just really a sketch. It's just trying to get a sense of the light on the flowers. And this is one thing that I love to do, this practice of finding a simple subject that I can just paint directly from life, because I feel like painting from life is such a great exercise in learning how to see and how to convey the world through painting. So oftentimes I'll get something like flowers, or I'll use fruit or other common still life objects. And, in the past, I thought that still lifes were boring. I thought that they'd been done so often. And I kind of thought, oh, who would want to paint fruit or flowers on a table because it's just been painted so many times. But there's a reason it's been painted so many times. There's several reasons, I think. The first is that it's very easy to get these objects, so you don't need to pay a model, you don't need to travel somewhere exotic. You can get these objects and put them on your table and practice right at home, basically with the resources that you have. So I think that makes these still lifes just a wonderful painting practice because they are so accessible. But then the other thing is that they are really complex. that still lifes, through painting a still life, I think that you are able to practice pretty much all of the painting techniques, all of the principles of art and design that you want to practice that will serve you in larger paintings and in potentially more detailed paintings. You can practice all of these components in a simple still life. Still lifes can teach you how to draw. They can teach you about value. They can teach you about light and shadow, about contrast, about composition, and of course about color and how to model the form. So I think that still life painting is it it may be somewhat underrated. It may seem less exciting than figurative painting or abstract painting, but still lifes, they're mighty, you know? They seem simple, but they're actually extremely complex. And they're also great because they help us get into the habit of painting directly from life. I think that some people are very big on this and they'll only paint from life, and I have a lot of respect for those folks, but I know a lot of us like to paint from photo references, especially if you're painting people or you're painting things that move. It can be very difficult to paint these from life, and it can also be expensive to hire models to sit for you so that you can paint them. So I think that realistically, most of us do end up painting from photos, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be painting from life as well. I learned so much from painting these flowers, learning how to simplify light and shadow, learning how light looked when I'm looking at it directly with my eyes versus the way that the camera sees it. I learned so much through doing this painting. The camera does change the way that we see the world. The camera has its own way of perceiving light and color. For example, I notice that oftentimes my camera will make a subject look a little bit higher contrast than it appears to my own eyes. And there's just so much subtlety that I feel like the camera doesn't quite pick up. That reference photo just doesn't capture what I'm actually seeing with my eyes. So I challenge you, if you don't do much still life painting, go out, get some flowers, get some fruit, whatever objects is sitting on your table, and give it a try. Look at that object for a long time, study it closely, and try to notice all of the nuances of light and color that are right before your eyes, and see if you can depict that in a painting. And for me, I like to approach these still lifes paintings as studies or experiments. So you can see that I'm using a small canvas, I'm using a large brush, and I often will set a time limit. For example, I think that this piece took me about an hour I spent working on it. So it's helpful because it helps keep my brush strokes very loose, and it gives the piece a sense of energy that I then like to bring into my larger paintings. So I find that there's so much that I can learn through doing these small paintings as exercises. And because I set a time limit, because I'm working small, I'm able to do a lot of these studies over the course of a week or a month. And so with this piece, I continue modifying the shapes I've created, sometimes adding some details, sometimes taking them away. I also add some smaller marks with the brush to get a sense of the delicacy of those petals. So I'll have a few marks that are very precise and very sharp to hint at that. And then once I've found the right level of detail, then I'm ready to call it a day, and I feel like I've done what I came to do with this sketch. And that's a big thing when it comes to painting flowers like this or another really complicated subject, where if you don't want to go in and paint every last detail, you need to find some way to simplify it, some way to make a broader statement about the thing that you're painting. And in a way, to me, I find this even more challenging than going in and painting every single detail. That's the balance that I'm trying to strike when I'm adding these details, sometimes adding, sometimes taking away, just finding the right amount to getting at the essence of my subject. So here's the final painting, and you can see how it gives a sense of the light. I think it also has a nice contemporary feel to it because we do have this sense of these strong shapes. I also feel like there is a lot of energy and movement in the brushstrokes that make the flowers feel lively, and that's something that I really like. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that this video has given you some inspiration to go out and do your own still life painting this week. It's such a simple practice, but it can teach us so much about painting light, color, and form. And if you want to see more content, be sure to check out my Patreon, where I have full-length painting videos and other exclusive Patreon-only content. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.